What's going on, y'all? I know I've been saying for a while I'm going to do a full review on the Outlaw, so we're going to get into that right now. So far I've been very pleased. This is an awesome little machine. The only few things I don't really like about it right off the bat were the leads that came with it. This is not the Stinger lead. This is one I took off my ESOB, and that is a great lead. The one that came with it was pretty much just junk. This is the ground lead that came from it. I rolled mine up a couple days ago and left it right there and drove off, and now it's gone. But the ground lead and the Stinger lead both were, however long that is, maybe 10-12 feet. They're really cheap. They're just junk, to be honest with you. I like to have about 50-foot leads. This is a two-wheel drive truck, so a lot of times I can't get into it if it's any shorter than that. But the other thing is it's really loud, so I don't know if y'all will be able to hear me when I start it up, but we'll see. It is a pretty loud machine. But you got your breaker right here, you got your 120s here, your ground faults, and then a 240 right here, and it is a twist lock, so you'll need to make one of these if you want to run a wire welder off of it, and that's super easy to make or pretty cheap to buy, whatever you want to do. The only reason I bought this machine really was, number one, price. I had an option to buy a 302 Trailblazer for the same price I got this for, but it was used. The hour meter was broke. Didn't know how many hours were on it, and on these nap-eyed beds I'd have to plate that and really reinforce it to put a welder up there, and I didn't want a big welder in the bed of the truck. I'm not going to say it'll do what a Lincoln Outback or a Miller Blue Star will. If I could have had my choice, I would have bought a Blue Star 185, but for what I do, the price difference was, I just kind of had to go with this one. Also, the generator output, it says 6,500 watts, which is kind of why I went with this as well, because if I'm not mistaken, the Outback's like 5,700 watts, and I think the Blue Star's right around the same. And I don't know how accurate that 6,500 watts on this machine is. I know the 195 is probably not accurate, because this dial, it's also pretty much junk. I usually run this thing, most jobs I would have this run to 80 amps, and when I put it on 80 amps here, it's like 100 amps on any other machine. So that dial's just kind of cheap and not very accurate at all. I'll run this a lot down at like 50 amps, on fairly thick material, so I know it's burning way hotter than 50 amps. It takes me a while sometimes to kind of get it dialed in because of that, and because what it tells you right here on the readout is not accurate. It'll say you're welding at 80 amps and you're probably welding at 110, so it takes kind of playing with. So far, the electric start, it has fired up every try, and it's been sitting. I've had this thing for right at a year now. Other than that, other than the leads and that knob, it's a great little machine. I had a Lincoln 180 that I'd ran off of it, and it did pretty good. And then this was a welder I bought before I had that, and it's pretty much a piece of junk too. It'll run 035 flux core, and for some of what you do, that's fine, but being out here, and like today it's windy and everything, I prefer to have a stick welder. So I don't have any jobs going on right now. I've just got a little bit of scrap material here we're going to kind of play around with and show you guys what this thing will do. We got 1/8 inch, and there's 1/8 inch 6011, and I think that is 3/32 6011. So we'll run a little bit of that. I've just got this socket set up here to put my phone on, so hopefully you guys can see all right with that. I'm gonna go ahead and fire it up. The choke is in the back of the machine here. You just flip that over and so I just did this because I wanted to show y'all kind of what I was talking about with the amperage. This is obviously really thin sheet metal. And right here you can see I wasn't running hot enough to weld it at all. Up here it burned all the way through. And so what's kind of weird about the adjustments on that machine, I had it turned all the way down to minimum and it was still putting out 60 amps, and that's where I was burning through here. So I went down to 30 amps and couldn't even weld. And then I don't know how well y'all can see these, ouch, but that was like 38 to 42 amps on those welds, and you can do it. I've done really thin steel irrigation pipe with it, so it's definitely doable. And then over here, that was with the 3/32. Over here you can see that 1/8 inch rod burns really good with this. Clean that up a little bit. Once you get it kind of tuned in and figured out, that 1/8 inch rod burns really good. I don't have my chipping hammer. I left it at the shop, but you can see you can definitely get a good strong weld in. I didn't mean to knock the whole thing out, but as you can see, you can get a pretty decent weld in there. Loves 1/8 inch rod. I've run 3/32 and what else have I run? Something else. Let's see if it's in here. When I was doing those irrigation jobs, I ran 3/32 and 1/8 inch, here it is, and 1/16 inch, and it burned 1/16 inch like a champ. But like I was saying, you know, when I was welding those irrigation pipes, that's something that cannot leak at all. So you want to get a piece of scrap and get your machine dialed in first, because if you're just going off of what you normally would with your parameters, that machine is not very accurate. So you want to kind of get down into a piece of scrap metal and play around and figure out exactly where you need to set your machine before you start welding on something structural or something that you might run a risk of water leaks or things like that. But as far as a field service machine, I've got no complaints so far. I switched the leads out, and you know, it just takes a little bit of playing with on a piece of scrap before you start really going to town on anything. As far as what I do, you know, is mostly skid steer attachments, trailers, things like that. I haven't had any welds come apart. I haven't had any situations where I didn't get good penetration with the 1/8 inch, and I haven't had anything blow apart irrigation wise with the 1/16 inch or the 5/32. So it's been a good machine. It runs 70/18 like a champ too. Now 60/11 and 70/18 are the only two rods that I've run off of it. They're the only two rods that, with what I do, I have really any need for. So if you're looking for a farm, ranch, even construction maintenance type machine, it's a great little machine to have. It's got a relatively small footprint in your truck. You know, you could mount that up on the side of the box. I'll probably do that eventually. It's just a matter of having the time to reinforce that a little bit and do so. But it's been a great little machine so far. So if there's anything else you guys want to see on it, I'm thinking about picking up some bigger rods and seeing how big a rod we can run with this thing, and maybe even how small. But you guys just let me know. I mean, as far as small rods, that's, you know, that's as small as I'll ever need to go. That's for sure. That's pretty dang thin. You know, and 1/2 inch is about as big as I ever need to go, and it welds half inch like a pro. So if you guys want to see anything else on it, next time maybe I'll plug the grinder up or something and get somebody to run the grinder while I'm welding with it, and vice versa. Maybe we'll run run a little MIG welder or something off of here while we're running the stick welder and see how it holds up. But if you guys got any suggestions, anything that you want to see in particular, anything you want to try with it, you know, to help you decide if it's a machine you might be interested in buying, just leave a comment down below and we'll try to get around to making that video for you. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And if this channel is something you're into, go ahead and subscribe. You know, I know these videos are kind of janky right now, but if I get quite a few people subscribing and interested, I'll invest in some decent recording equipment and some tripods and things, you know, so we can get a little bit better footage. So thank you all again.